We welcome you to today's media presentation, which is about presenting to you the annual performance, the financial year 2022-2023 for uMngeni-uThukela as we now know it. It's just important to point out to the media colleagues in particular that you might hear us referring interchangeably to uMngeni and then uMngeni-uThukela. Yes, the organization remains very much uMngeni-uThukela Water as reconfigured by Minister Senzo Mchunu, but because we are reporting for the erstwhile uMngeni Waters activities, and similarly, a similar exercise will follow for the erstwhile uMhlathuze Water Board prior to the reconfiguration. I thought let us then make that distinction before media colleagues then say, have we reverted to the old dispensation as it were? No, we are still very much uMngeni-uThukela Water, but it's just that the year in question that we are reporting for will focus mainly on the activities of the erstwhile uMngeni Water. With those few words, I welcome you all to today's proceedings. It's really the first time that the media is engaging with the board at this level, where it's just ourselves as uMngeni-uThukela and the board. The last time we engaged, I think it was when Minister Senzo Mchunu introduced the board to yourselves, media colleagues. So by way of introduction and in the interest of time, appreciating your deadline pressures as well, I will not introduce the board individually, but just to say that in the table directly in front of me are our board members, led by Advocate Kuzwayo as the board chairperson, who I now welcome onto the stage to give us a message from the board as we begin. Thank you.
Morning, members of the media, fellow board members, management, and everyone who has made time to be with us this morning. We would like to begin by firstly appreciating your presence. I think today everyone has important things, but for us as the board, we appreciate this opportunity. I think the media is one of the most, I think, critical stakeholder in any organization's life activities and on, because the good and the bad is actually channeled through the media. And if we don't engage with the media by affording you an opportunity to receive the good news from us, we would have failed, I think, in our responsibility. As program director has said, we are uMngeni-uThukela Water Board. So when I simply say the board, I would only be referring to uMngeni-uThukela Board. I think with a rider, as he has indicated, that in terms of reporting, we're reporting on uMngeni Water Board, which is an erstwhile entity. Hence, because our term starts on the 1st of October. Therefore, we can claim that the report we're presenting today was under our direction and control. But as you all know, when you take over an organization, you take it with the assets and the liabilities. So today, I think we're presenting to you in the main the assets which were found in the organization. So when we came into office, I think we immediately found ourselves having to acquaint ourselves with a water board, which is on the water and sanitation services space. As a board, we literally consist of various individuals with various professions, with qualifications, exposure. But in the main, we therefore had to come into structuring ourselves into how we can form a formidable team that would take the good work that was done by those I think who were before us, and similarly where there are those small issues that requires further attention, we are actually available to take them. So we're taking both the assets and the liabilities. Today's presentation is literally on the 2022-2023 financial year report. It's about what the Auditor General conducting a statutory audit ascertained from the activities of the board. As you will all know, an organization, when it's time for an audit, there is one or two individuals who obviously doesn't sit. It's always the chief financial officer. So what we're presenting today is an AG's outcomes based on what the AG ascertained through the processes engaging with the CFO, the acting COE, and the relevant management of the organization. Obviously, the goal for any organization is a clean audit. When you get an unqualified audit opinion, it's nice to receive, but the main objective is to get a clean audit. So I'm certain everyone would then appreciate that when you had an entity which was uMngeni and has got an unqualified opinion, and then you had uMhlathuze, which at the appropriate time would release their report. But you would say, hey, I wonder what will happen in the 2023-2024 financial year. But I think with the team we've found in the executive and management, we probably shouldn't worry much. But as a board, we would want to ensure that our stakeholders and our customers must have faith in the systems that the board, together with management, are working on to protect what has been achieved. There is a spend on infrastructure upgrades and rehabilitation. I'm certain that we all know the challenges in terms of water in general. And uMngeni-uThukela has a specific mandate, but similarly, that specific mandate has to follow where the services are. So, you know, in budgeting, there is a saying that funds follow service. So there is infrastructure upgrades and rehabilitation. I don't want to give you the exact details, because there is going to be a presentation that is going to be presented by management. We have an acting COO. I'm certain that he would be in a position to unpack for you. But for the highlight, one would say in 2022-2023, there is a sum of 179 million in 22 was spent on bulk infrastructure augmentation, expansion, upgrades, rehabilitation projects. Of this amount, there are projects that have been implemented in the rural areas, because uMngeni-uThukela board, following taking a cue from our shareholder, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, has an extended mandate. So our coverage also extends to the rural areas. So we've got to budget for rural development in terms of water services infrastructure. There are milestones. I'm certain that the management team would share with you the kind of the milestones. The performance against planned initiatives. There's a total of about 58 annual measurable result indicators for which responsibilities and accountabilities were agreed and targets are approved within the entity at the start of the financial year. So these result indicators include all statutory indicators specifically targeted by the executive authority and approved through the shareholder compact, which is a binding document between the shareholder and uMngeni-uThukela board. The nature of the entity is a state owned. Although it generates the kind of funds it does, those funds aren't shared by the with the directors, but these funds are shared directly with the communities because it's a state-owned. Anything that is earned, the good results that are attributed through revenue growth and profits are not intended for anything other than to augment the service requirements. Hence, the strides that is being made towards rural development and cover the areas that were previously not covered by our mandate. I think for me it suffices to reflect that indeed there is growth in the revenue and profits. But again, this growth, us as a board, we have an obligation then to ensure that it doesn't reduce. So there is no regression in growth. Instead, we protect the gains that we've had and ensure that we grow the revenue, because this organization, as we all know, if disaster strikes, obviously we will not be in a position to receive any bailout from government. So these reserves that are being created would immediately be freed so that the necessary repairs and all necessary corresponding obligations to such a disaster or damage is augmented, because water is a right as to ensure that water is available to the communities. Economic transformation and job creation. Every organization like uMngeni-uThukela must ensure that there is a meaningful, broad-based economic empowerment and job creation through its policies that drive provision of meaningful economic opportunities and targeted enterprises. Similarly, this organization has that obligation, has such policies. Sometimes to talk to the achievements in a very narrow space might require us to have it, I think, more time, because when we talk about this black economic empowerment, we're talking about an expectation. I think unemployment rate is high. Therefore, when we were to simply say we have a policy that really targets creation of jobs, someone might want to get to the details, which I don't think one would be in a position to do it, I think, in a forum like this. But we do say there are necessary details which could be followed up after these presentations. We ordinarily then have to appear and I said somewhere we are not making commitments, but we are reporting that this board has a very critical role that it needs to play. It's not a secret. I'm sure the members of the media are aware. When we get introduced, you then hear somebody as an acting person in this position. In this regard, what this board really seeks to do is to fill the necessary position of the chief executive officer so that the entire organizations has stability, I think, from the first employee of the board, to then ensure that the necessary positions below him or her are filled appropriately. We are a new organization, therefore, when an organization is new, it does take over some of its existing employees. But us, we faced with a situation where we had former uMhlatuze, former uMngeni. So it means we now have one board taking into the weighting of the positions. I think the spread of the positions, I think at a macro level, and the spread of the positions, which really goes down to the necessary operations. But what one can share with the members of the media is that the board is really committed to sound governance, and a commitment to sound governance would be tested same time next year when we appear before you to present the next annual report. Thanks everybody for this opportunity. We are here, and we would ensure that we don't fail to have the same gathering. Probably you will be more in numbers than we have today. We believe in what the law provides for the establishment of the board. Therefore, our governance, I think they should be legally sound. They should be legally supported. Our decisions should be sound, reasonable, and based on sound policies, practices, which really hinges on accountability from all levels. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for those words from the board of uMngeni-uThukela. Can I now invite onto the stage Dr. Sipho Manana, our acting chief executive, to give us an organizational performance with a particular focus on just the highlights. Thank you very much. This will be a presentation that will be beamed. And just to remind you, members of the media, that in your packs, a summary of what we are presenting here today, but we will also be sharing the presentations.
Thank you, Program Director. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, the board led by the chairperson, our colleagues from management, and everybody who's here. My name is Sipho, as the Program Director has indicated. I'm delighted to be here again once more this year to present what management would want to, I think I must push this. Yes, the report of the chairperson, you will find it in the first part of the full report. And based on legislation, this is where we should be all the time. Each year, the results must be communicated to yourselves under under the principle of being transparent and being responsible to our stakeholders and the public at large. We are the executive, so the reports that are going to come from us will be covering the entire 12 months that has taken place since 1 July 2022. I will do the overview and I'll be assisted by the Group Chief Financial Officer, uNdonga, and uMwelase then will come with the specific operational report that you will find in the big report that will be shared with you, and you can go through it line by line. Mine is, first of all, to just give a short context. I'm trying to underscore what the chairperson has said. We are in transition, we're a new organization. You will remember, for the sake of background, that in July 2023, the minister gazetted the extension of former uMngeni water boundaries by establishing uMhlathuze water and having a name change of former uMngeni water to be properly spelled as well, uMngeni-uThukela, but it's no more just uMngeni with the correct spelling. I think members of the media in the past 4 years I've been here, chairperson, they've been always worried about this. When are you going to change the name to be correct in isiZulu? So there you are. We've got it corrected now. But what was actually going on in brief is that after the name change, what happened legally is that the assets, the staff, and liabilities of former Mhlathuze were thrown into the new organization now. Remember, technically, you would not have uMngeni as it used to be, but when it has the boundaries of former Mhlathuze and the Gazette being specific that due to national policy of a cabinet decision of 2012-2011, that there must be regional water utilities. KwaZulu-Natal is so fortunate because we had 2 water boards combined, and we are covering all the walls of the province now, which I will be showing in our supply area. What we have on the yellowish is what we are reporting on. But if you go towards Richards Bay next year, we will be focusing there as the area that we will be having customers as such that we have contracts with. But the minister has, and the cabinet decision has said this water board, uMngeni-uThukela water, is covering the entire map of KwaZulu-Natal. We have got ministerial directives that are throwing us in uMngeni-uThukela. Just on Monday and Tuesday, people will notice that the minister with the board were at uMzinyathi district as well as uThukela district. We are on the ground already in those areas that we never served before. So in essence, just because I'm doing the highlights, who were the foot and soldiers that took us to these results that I'll just show now? We were a 1,500 strong group. When I say group, you look at the other graphic there, you see that we have a national connection to the Department of Water and Sanitation through Minister Mtono. And we, as the parent company, have 2 subsidiaries. We have also 1 board member, Mr. Mlalose from Cincy, here with us today. And the water services is being anchored by board members who are here as well. Ubaba Mtia, Mr. Shandu, is the chairperson of that subsidiary. and we have a stake at the Durban water recycling that is giving profit for us, and other operations are being planned to get that wing of the subsidiary working. So we are very thin at the top. We have got 5 divisions, and there is a CE division. It's where you get the staff that does all these things like abomashimane. It's a very small division. I want to mention that in division operations, that's the base. Division operations has over 60% of the staff, as you see. So we are an organization that is not top loaded with administrators, but our members are in sites. Masibuko will indicate the number of sites that they are in. I must indicate that we have a pyramid. We are big at the base and small at the top, and we would really pride ourselves that we are not top heavy. Moving on, all organizations have got a roadmap, the strategy. You know that we feed to the departmental strategy, which is the DWS. Then we get all the shareholder targets from the minister as the chief shareholder. And as such, we then plan in a systematic way around where we are going to be measuring our performance. We have got an objectives or a strategic map on the right, starting from our vision, where we want to be a global leader in water provision and other areas, and all the other objectives that you will find there in the report. But more importantly, we invest in people. We want to invest in technology and make sure that such things like relationships, keeping our stakeholders knowing what is actually going on, what is in it for communities, is also some of our strategic pillars. And also have the fact that we can't be left behind with technology. We know other water utilities in the world that we benchmark with them, and there are countries that we work with to make sure that we are indeed global. Okay, this is now the report card. We were here last year. When we were here, we had reported that if you go back to last year, we were having results that were the best in 4 years. And this time we went down a bit. We are not bad in the 80s, we are still in the 90s. If you look on the other side, the annual performance trend, and in this year, we have a variance of 10%, and we are at 90%. And all these have been audited by various levels, internal auditing, external auditing, and we are reporting this kind of results. Some would want to know, why did you go down? The one target that we were really worried about, which affected us, is that due to the reconfiguration, there were some targets that if you do it before you get everybody on board, you will be wasting money. So we had to park those. But you know that according to the Planning and Monitoring Department, if the target was planned, you abandon it, you still count it. You don't discard it out because you are fixing your report card. So this has haunted us, but it made us drop by the 4% that we had last year. Okay. Stakeholder understanding and support. What did we do? We had a lot of engagements. We were with the minister. At times we were alone, and our customers would testify to this, that we ensured that all areas that we were to attend that demanded stakeholder attention, we did. And we normally put a 4-part quadrant to look at how we react towards each stakeholder, those that are statutory, those that are non-statutory, where you get also the contracted ones and the non-contracted ones. But we did fairly well on this because on the scorecard, there is not much variance that you would find in this area. The next one, I did mention about the 1,500 or so members. We are having a lot of training. The reason why maybe we perform, because if I would give you other water boards, the 90 is a very, many water boards are salivating to be in the 90s. They are not in the 90s, they are in the 80s and so forth. So what makes us achieve, it's not just the technical machinery that we have, but people. Under leadership and employee development, we concentrate there. We spend a lot. You will see in the annual report the monies that are spent, but we are mindful of the fact that we need all the skills that are scarce in the country, the artisans. We also have a graduate development program. We also fund, we have bursaries that we give. We extended that last year to close to 30 students in the BSc, accounting and other categories. We are also partnering with the National Treasury to produce engineers, professional engineers who stay for 5 years. After finishing a 4-year degree qualification, they get trained in various aspects, right from chemical engineering, civil engineering, mechanical, up to all other disciplines. We even have town planners in partnership with municipalities so that they can go out and practice whenever they've done that work integrated learning. Apprentices are also a big area where we come in. The intermediate skills, if you go through the ladder of skills, that you can't focus on the higher order skills of dexterity like engineers that do. You also need the intermediate skills where the technicians and the artisans and the technologies are coming in. So we have a spread so that we can be sustainable as an organization, and also not to leave out the leadership aspect, that though those professionals are there, they need to be given leadership skills. We have also done a lot of work with the UKZN and other universities. We are now also mindful of the fact that in this area, we need to get the digital workers in our organization coming up. Maybe next year, we shall give you a rundown on the technology side and what have we done to increase our knowledge workers. Community and environmental sustainability. This is now our ESG. We have to show what have we done for social advancement, economic advancement, as well as environmental. The environment is very dear to us because if you violate the environment, being a water utility, how are you going to get your water resources? There are climate change issues, biodiversity issues that are involved in our environmental sustainability strategy. This has been done, and you know the problem of load shedding. We are trying by all means to make sure that we have got reuse of water. Like other countries are maybe recycling water more than 6 times before it is discharged maybe towards the ocean. And we are a province that is having all the east being the ocean. It's very important that we make reuse work. So in this area, we are putting numbers in the report of how we have done. We have not ascended. We will try in this instance to make sure that the spend, especially on small and medium enterprises and creation of jobs, is done. Ndonga is now going to give us the financial report, and followed by uMngeni. Let me end here, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Uh, my apologies and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to recognize our chairperson of the board, as well as the board members that are here, and then also recognize our executive team from uMngeni-uThukela, and then welcome all our guests and staff from uMngeni-uThukela. Ladies and gentlemen, we started a financial year on a low, recovering from floods that had occurred in April 2022. We then had the Minister Gazette reconfiguration that meant we needed to then combine the two organizations, uMhlathuze Water as well as uMngeni-uThukela. This was all occurring during a tough economic climate. But I believe that the results that we are presenting are evidence of the entity's resilience to change and adversities. This is also evidenced by the Fitch ratings, where we were rated AA+, which is higher than the sovereign rating of BBB, and that's the country's rating. So the organization is performing higher and is rated higher than the country itself. So if I have to then just start at a high level and show our revenue that we are reporting in the 2023 financial year is 5.2 billion rands. This is an increase from 4.9 billion rands in the previous year. This represents an increase of 344 million rands. Our cost of sales at 2.2 billion, an increase of 244 million. And then obviously a gross profit percentage of 58%, which actually shows a slight 2% reduction from the previous year, which I will actually get to the details of. And I think the floods had a lot to do with it, but I will then get to the cost drivers, what makes up the cost of sales. We will then look at the other operating and administrative expenses. At 2 billion rands, there was an increase there. I think there's a mistake of the 2062. It's supposed to be 464 million rand increase. That area is normally affected by the impairments and write-offs of equipment, but I will get to the detail as well and break it down. Expected credit losses were 580 million. This is the area that we are busy focusing on, which is a significant business risk on our side, where our customers cannot afford to then pay for the services that we actually deliver to them. But then our net finance income increased by 237 million rands to 554 million rands. This is mainly due to investments that we've held during the year that relate to our funds and reserves that we utilize for working capital as well as project implementation. This then takes us to a profit of 1.162 billion rands compared to last year's profit of 1.241 billion rands. And this is a slight reduction of about 79 million rands from last year. Just to analyze the sales volumes for the year 2023, you see there's a 3.2% increase on volumes to 580 million kiloliters of water. The main driver of these high volumes will be our big customer here at eThekwini with 409 million. And then obviously followed by uMsunduzi at 79. And obviously we have other customers at about 129 kiloliters. Then just getting to the cost drivers, as I mentioned, these make up your cost of sales. So the first driver will be your chemicals. You will notice a 12% increase on our chemical costs year on year. This increase is due to the average price and usage per kilogram of about 20% and 27% respectively. Our Durban Heights plant and DV Harris Wiggins plants, they did actually contribute to higher usage due to heavy rains. So with the floods, we've had such heavy rains, the water turbidity is high, which then means we need to then put more chemicals to actually purify our water. On the energy side, which is electricity, you see an increase of about 18%. This 18% is a combination of one, tariff increases, but also a usage increase. There was an increase on usage where we had our shaft pumps here, which increased by about 51%. And then we had also the Wiggins high lift increasing by about 7%. And this average price increases were about 10%. So the combination of the tariff as well as the price increase as well as usage took us to that 18% increase. This obviously represents about 394 million rands. Then maintenance. That's where we have also a very big increase in the current financial year. Maintenance went up by about 38%. And I did explain initially that with the floods, we then had to maintain a lot of our waterworks just due to the high usage, as well as some of the infrastructure that we had actually lost during the floods, which then meant that we had to augment and utilize other substitutes to make sure that we continue to supply our customers with water. But obviously, there were actually some renewal costs that also actually contributed to maintenance, as well as the refurbishment of pumps, as I've explained. Just continuing on the cost drivers, our staff cost stayed at about 7% growth, and this 7% growth over the prior year was overtime cost. So obviously, once we're trying to recover on those floods, there was some overtime that was actually incurred, but also it's a combination of your standard pay increases. As you know, most of our employees are on collective agreements with the unions. The raw water cost slightly went down at about 2%, and this was due to in the current year, we actually had one of our clients, King Echwayo District Municipality, the potable water that we purchased for them at the city of Mhlathuze, city of Mhlathuze decided to reduce their tariff, which then actually provided a credit on our total cost, raw water costs. Other operating and admin costs, as I touched, they increased by 29% from 2.037 billion to 2.6 billion. The main contributors of our operating and admin costs, well, we've got our staff costs here. They make up about 640 million rands. And then we have asset impairments. Those are write-offs of the assets that are not generating revenue or income at about 292 million. And then we've got credit losses, which are about 580 million. Net finance income, I did mention that it increased by 75%. This is just mainly due to the investments that we've held during the year. And obviously, we hold them for working capital, as I've mentioned, as well as project implementation. We have had, and we did report in the previous financial years, the slowness on project implementation and the delays in us implementing projects, obviously being affected, one, by site interruptions and stoppages, but also being interrupted by the constant lockdowns during the pandemic. So whilst we were not actually delivering those projects, we then invested all the funds, and that's the benefit of the interest income. The bulk water cost per kiloliter went up by about 3%. My apologies there, the 3% is supposed to be in the middle. But this is just obviously being affected as well by one, the asset impairments and the write-offs and other indirect costs, and that's the reason why then you have that a slight increase on the cost per kiloliter of bulk water. And then obviously profit for the year, we did explain that there was a reduction from 1.2 billion rands in the previous year down to 1.1 billion rands in the current financial year. And we did actually show you how the cost increases have actually had an impact. So in total, your cost increases average about 12%, obviously. And then I did mention about high chemicals usage due to the poor quality of the raw water. On the balance sheet, or now we call it the financial position, I will just highlight that our total assets have increased by 1.4 billion rands, from 16.1 billion rands to 17.6 billion rands. Our capital and reserves have also gone up by 1.256 billion rands, from 13.1 billion to 14.41 billion. That 1.2 billion increase in reserves is just last year's profit actually accumulating here. So obviously it then increases our capital and reserves. Just a bit of a highlight. I think one of the positives in the current financial year, you will notice that in the 2022 financial year, we reported 943 million rands worth of capex. And we did explain in that financial year that we were coming off COVID-19 pandemic with lockdowns, but also we were experiencing a lot of site interruptions and closures where then projects were delayed. But I'm happy to report that in 2023, we've then increased that spend to 1.7 billion rands capex against a budget of 969 million in 2022. We are in the future planning to continue with project implementation, and there is a budget of about 2.9 billion rands that we've actually budgeted for in this new financial year that we're working on. Investments did increase. There was a 13% increase, but I've already explained that all the funds that all the excess cash we then actually take to investments, and that's the increase, and that is also actually evidenced by the interest income that would have incurred. But another good indicator is that our debtors days have also reduced. We've gone from 61 days in 2022 to about 44 days in 2023. Whilst we still have a credit risk, as I said, that some of the customers are not paying us on time, we've seen the benefit of getting into some payment plans with some of the customers before the end of the financial year. But I still feel that this is an area that we're going to be working hard to tighten up our credit control to then ensure that those number of days are reduced. I think the standard terms is supposed to be 30 days, so we are 14 days above what we are supposed to collect. And then our gross debt to equity ratio has remained constant at 0.08. We have not borrowed in the current financial year. That's the reason why you don't see the movement. There are plans to borrow in the future. I think from 2026 we are planning to then borrow because we've got huge capital projects that we're gonna be getting ourselves into. And then on our gross debt and borrowing limits, you'll notice that we've only stayed a bit constant on our borrowings, as I've stated, at 1 billion rands. But our National Treasury has given us a limit of about 2 billion rands to borrow. So we've got about a 50% buffer in terms of what we need to borrow. We are building up that limit so that we are able to borrow more, as we are going to be on a drive to actually deliver quite a lot of projects in that area. And then net cash flows from analysis of cash flows, and then net cash from operating activities was about 1.8 billion rands. Net cash used in investing activities was 2.1 billion rands, slightly or not slightly, but less than the previous financial year. Net cash used in financing activities was 295 million compared to 152 in the previous financial year. But what we need to notice is that we have actually used less cash in the current financial year compared to last year at 1.2 billion rands. And then obviously our net balance has slightly reduced to about 291 million rands. And then this is just the graphical look of what I've just explained. And obviously, we also just want to highlight the fact that there is a net cash that was used in financing activities, which was made up of a 25 million rand repayment of a debt. And we then had 120 million rands that we actually received on that instrument. And then I did mention that all surplus cash was invested in line with our investment policy. And then I would like to touch on one area where in every year when we actually report our annual reports, we then have to then also just explain, and I think it's one area where as public entities, we also need to account to the public in terms of irregular expenditure. As you'll understand that the entity has had quite a significant amount on irregular expenditure. Our cumulative irregular expenditure for 2022-2023 amounted to, and this is the cumulative now over the years, of 2.5 billion rands. This includes an amount of 1.9 billion rands that was carried forward from the previous financial years. The total amount incurred in the current year was 567 million, which includes multi-year contracts. So contracts that were found to be irregular in the previous financial year, they practically are continuing to then accumulate at 567 million rands. Contract management, which relates to non-compliance with instruction note 3, which was actually stating that Treasury has to approve variation orders on contracts, that amounted to about 130 million rands for the year. Deviations from supply chain management processes in the previous year related also to about 100 million rands, just to give a little bit of a breakdown on the 567 million. What is the organization doing about irregular expenditure? We have implemented the probity audit. So prior to award, we then have independent firms actually looking at whether the award is proper, whether the scorings that have been done are done the way they are supposed to be done. There is systematic improvements on supply chain processes in terms of trying to make sure that all the checklists and all legislations are actually documented and employees do tick off that they've complied. There is a clean audit task team that has been established that is chaired by the acting CE, monitoring implementation of recommendation from investigations. I would like to mention that, you know, the board has taken a posture of investigating all irregular expenditure, and all recommendations of those investigations are then actually implemented. The president did proclaim further investigations onto 2 contracts in the current financial year through the SIU, and those investigations are ongoing. So as I say, there is an element of zero tolerance on irregular expenditure by the organization to just ensure that compliance is adhered to. Just at a high level, as I started, the entity has maintained its reputation as a financially viable entity, creating significant value for customers and shareholders. Strong results were achieved under the difficult economic climate that we are operating in. because of sound financial management in the year. Notably, the 5.3 billion revenue that we generated compared to the 4.9 billion in the previous financial year. The net surplus of 1.2 billion, we just rounded up the 1.1 to 1.2, which shows how close it was to the previous financial year. And then we also have strengthened our balance sheet reserves to 14.4 billion rands from the 13.2 billion rands that we had reported in the previous financial year. And the end surplus for the year will be invested to support future 5-year 13.9 billion rands capital investment programs, as well as it will be used for debt reduction. As at 30 June 2023, a significant portion of capital investments were already committed to project implementation. I thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Greetings to the Chairperson of the Board, board members, CE and colleagues, and the members of the media. I think the performance has been done. My task here is to just sum it together to say what this meant to our customers and our operation in general. Looking at our reach in KwaZulu-Natal, we have a demand of about 2,100 million liters per day, of which uMngeni-uThukela through the 7 water services authorities that we supplied in the reporting year, we contribute about 70% of that in equivalent of 1,589 million liters per day. So you can see that as we merged, and the expectation is that we deliver these services throughout the province. Most of the job has been done. We just need to deal with the unserved areas. Obviously, dynamics are different, but the bulk of the volumes, given the population densities, are already in the 7 water service authorities that we operate under. So from the previous year, that's a 3% increase. And in the wastewater business, we're not much in the wastewater business within the 7 water services authorities that we operate under. We mainly operate within uMnguni-uThukela with 11 wastewater treatment works. And we've recently acquired 10 from eThekwini municipality, which we started operating last week. So this will take this number to 11 plus 10 to 21. But in terms of volumes, that is significant. So in the next year's report, we'll be reporting significant volumes from eThekwini amounting to about 360 million liters per day. So that is in terms of the volumes. There was not much growth from the previous year to the year of reporting in the wastewater business due to various constraints in the reticulation systems. I think moving on to operational resiliency, like any other business, we have risks that we would like to keep under control. Our strategic risk, our risk framework dictates that we look at what is tolerable, and then we devise mitigations and make sure that we put responses in place. And we would want those mitigations and responsiveness, the effectiveness of those responses to be above 55%. Just to touch on the two that don't make us sleep at night, is the ability, apologies for the lighting, is the ability to deliver projects on time. I think throughout the country that is well documented as a result of work stoppages due to various reasons, and also land acquisition issues. Those are some of the key issues resulting to delivering projects on time. And the other one I would like to touch on is the ability to meet current and future demands. This is as a result of perpetual growth in demands and non-revenue water from the consumers. So this is one aspect that we will really want to deal with. but also touching on some of the main reasons for this one that it is a worry to us is a delay in bringing online the Upper Mkomazi project, which I will talk through as a result of not signing the implementation agreements on time. I think as we move on, in terms of our water availability, this is the raw water part of it where it is abstracted from rivers and stored in dams. We are fairly comfortable as per the current demands, but looking at the future, we need some more. The uMngeni water project in the main is the critical one, which must augment the existing uMngeni system that supplies eThekwini, iLembe, Mgungundlovu, and Herigwal. So that project is a change maker for us. So work had started on that one, and is the Section 33 process from the respective municipalities has concluded, and the implementation agreements are due to be signed end of December, which will enable the project to proceed. I think also looking at the water availability, in the medium term, we have what we call the Lower Mkomazi system, which will bring online about 100 million liters per day of water to the eThekwini and Uku systems. That is scheduled for completion in 2026. So as part of that, there is an offline channel storage dam that is part of that project, which is going to start construction soon. I think as we move on to the quality of our water and wastewater, I think we met all our standards as per the South African National Standards 241/2015 for potable water. For it's categorized in terms of excellent and good, depending on where your plant is located and which population it services. Going forward, this would change. This year, it looks at specific categories and it looks at the overall picture of your supply area. Also, as well in the wastewater, we've met our targets in terms of protecting the environment through our effluent disposals as governed by the relevant authorities. So we are comfortable with the results we are presenting has resulted to this performance also. Moving on to our infrastructure stability. In the reporting year, we had targeted to spend 1.6 billion rands worth of capital infrastructure, and we have surpassed that, and we spent just above 1.7. And of that, as part of the shareholder compact target, 26% of that went to rural development projects. So as UCE had highlighted earlier on, that this is an important aspect of our business as well through the shareholder compact reporting. Also, the impacts of floods, April floods last year, were significant, resulting to a loss of close to 260 million liters per day in the eThekwini supply. When we lost Aqueduct 1 and Aqueduct 2, those are just big pipes conveying raw water to our largest treatment plant in Durban. We worked very hard around the clock to deal with these ones. We successfully commissioned one aqueduct in December last year, and on Tuesday we commissioned the second one. So which means we are back online with full supply. But during that time, we were utilizing redundancy or backup systems, which are power intensive and the likes. So the shut that was on the media in the previous day or two was as a result of bringing that aqueducts back online. And in terms of categorizing our projects, as we move briefly, just touching on our project catalog, our infrastructure requires upgrade every now and again to make sure that it meets future supply. We also need to extend to different areas using the same resource. We also need to build new resources. This is where the uMngeni project comes in, where you build a resource from the river. It's a new resource. You build infrastructure, you treat, you supply. So it's a new resource. So it's a combination. Infrastructure is old. You also have to rehabilitate. So our projects are a combination of that. Also included there is rural development type of projects. So the first two projects are what I would call the game changers for systems that are towards the south, eThekwini, Ilembe, Herikwala, and Uku. In around 2026, we will be having new water from the Lower Mkomazi project, around 100 million liters per day. The project is currently under construction. It includes a dam also. We are abstracting water from the Mkomazi River. And then we have what we call Mkomazi Water Project. That one will give 500 million liters per day of water, but upgradable to 625 million liters of water. So that will see the demands for 2050 being met in the south central areas. And then the variety of other projects includes wastewater. In Popomeni, we are operating a plant to treat wastewater to enable the communities of Popomeni to have reliable sanitation system services. We have also upgraded the Davil wastewater treatment plant. It is not here. It was just unveiled, I think, 2 months or so ago. And we've also, there is what we call that Greater Mpofana Bulk Water Services. That's a new plant which was commissioned around March this year, 20 megaliters per day treatment plant, which supplies the areas of Pofana at the top there. And I think as part of the upgrades, you would see that the last project there, we're still talking about the aqueducts. These are the other aqueducts. So in terms of resilience, our infrastructure, it's important that we invest in rehabilitating our infrastructure so that we prolong its life. So this is a summary of our critical infrastructure that is up and coming in the next within the next 5 years. Just to touch on the Mkomazi project, because I think it's an important project. This project will abstract water from the Mkomazi River and it will convey it and treat it at Bainsfield, where the water treatment plant will be. So this is implemented by both the Trans-Caledon Authority and uMngeni-uThukela. The TCTA will fund and implement the raw water component, which is the dam and the conveyance system, which is your tunnels and pipelines, about close to 40 kilometers away from where the plant will be. And uMngeni-uThukela will implement water treatment or water purification infrastructure and distribution infrastructure. As part of this project, there is an expectation of about 2.5 megawatts of power from hydropower, given the size of the dam. I think the dam is going to be, if not the largest in the country, because it's an 81-meter wall dam. So this is a huge project which is progressing very well from the past 6 months or so after intervention from ministry, because the municipalities, I think, have concluded the consultation processes and we are now good to go. I think TCTA has also gone out on adverts, on tender adverts for the raw water component. Just wanted to elevate this project as due to its significance. This project will benefit close to 5 million people. It's very significant. And just lastly, to touch on our processes, I think as part of the shareholder compact, we also target to save water and not lose water as we treat, convey, and supply. So our target is not more than 5% water losses, which we have successfully managed. We also have a target of supply disruptions, which results to shuts. These are planned and unplanned shuts that prolong to more than 24 hours. So we calculate those, we cumulate the number throughout the year, and in the reporting year, 28 days of disruptions were recorded. This was mainly in the Mpofana area, where I highlighted the Greater Mpofana plant, which is a new plant. It was before we commissioned that plant. It's a small scheme that we were operating. Due to floods, we were unable to access the raw water pump station, also in the Lichitin, a small plant that we operate. So, but that problem is not going to be a problem anymore because we commissioned a new plant, which abstracts water from the Spring Grove Dam. Also, what we will want to highlight here is our spend on maintenance. Maintenance, you would want to keep your spend on maintenance to within industry norms, within 3 to 7% of your PPE. And I think we've done that. As the CFO has highlighted, there's a, okay, this was my last slide. There's a noticeable increase from the previous year to the year of reporting. So we are around 4.6%. This is due to flood impact. So we wanted to make sure that our infrastructure is more resilient going forward, because we suffered significantly in the past 3 years, floods, unrest, and the likes. So we are investing more infrastructure to make sure that we are always ahead. I think just lastly, so it's back. Lastly, what have we done to our customers also to make sure that infrastructure in the reticulation is resilient also? We're embarking on water conservation and demand management initiatives province-wide, where we work with our WSAs to make sure that their water balances are intact. We assist them to business plans to make sure that they deal with non-revenue water, and they submit the necessary applications for upgrading their systems. We have a memorandum of understandings with various WSAs, where on a monthly basis, our technical committees deal with water losses and non-revenue issues. Just to highlight on one specific one, in Popomeni, we had a war on leak initiative, where we conducted a door-to-door in Popomeni to, one, train plumbers, and also to deal with the real losses. That project was completed, and it saw a 20% reduction in water losses. It was a very successful project. Hence, we completed a business plan for another one, which we want to do in Copsville. The business plan has been concluded. We will be starting shortly with that one also. So these are some of the initiatives where we work together with our WSAs to make sure that infrastructure really gives us what we are looking for. I think, Program Director, my presentation would end here. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Nzima Ndonga, the CE, and once again, the Chair, respectively. Media colleagues, we now get to the part that no doubt I'm sure you've been anticipating. Doc, I already see Sihle Mavuso giving me a sly smile there. Colleagues, we also have some inquiries online. But before we move to the Q&As, can I request that the board chair, the deputy chair, as well as all the presenters move to the table to my left so that we can deal with the Q&As. Megan, can I have an additional seat there, please? So how we will sequence this, colleagues, is you introduce yourself by giving me the name, your name, and the organization you represent, and then shoot with the question. And of course, we'll take the media colleagues online as well who've sent their questions on WhatsApp. All right, colleagues, once we are ready to go, I think we can take the questions. I'll take them in batches of 5. We have a roving mic. If you can, by way of show of hand, ask your questions. We have one from Tony Kani at the back.
Thank you. Good morning. Ooh, sorry. Tony Carney from the Daily Maverick. I've got 2 questions. The first relates to water reticulation failures for your biggest customer, eThekwini. Specifically over the last 2 months or so, there's been quite frequent water shutoffs in the north of the city, and there've been various explanations that have been advanced, ranging from sabotage of valves, and other other explanations have included suggestions that uMngeni might be trying to ration or limit the supply of water to Durban to compel it to reduce its water losses. And the other possibility that was alluded to maybe just now was the flood-related damage necessitating the repair of two aqueducts. So I think with those sort of varying explanations from uMngeni's side, maybe you outline what your understanding is of the factual or the root cause of those recent shortages. The second question relates to wastewater infrastructure. And in one of the presentations at the end, there was a reference to the recent takeover of 10 wastewater treatment plants in eThekwini. There's two questions really related to that issue. Is firstly, if uMngeni-uThukela took over those plants last week, you're not going to see results overnight, but perhaps you can give an indication of what will be involved in the refurbishment of failing treatment systems, notably the Northern Wastewater Treatment Works, and the rationale for uMngeni taking over those treatment works. Uncharitably, I think you have to presume that there's been a failure by eThekwini to operate them properly, but I invite your comment on that. And then finally, what is the likely to be the financial impact on residents of eThekwini when those treatment works are managed by a third party as opposed by eThekwini? Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I note two hands in the table before me.
Good morning. It's Letty Wemdluli from ENCA. My question is related to Tony's question, his first question, in terms of water shedding. We've been covering a lot of areas around Durban, especially in the southern parts and in the northern parts as well. There are reports, not confirmed though, that there is water shedding that is currently taking place in the metro. Can uMngeni confirm this? And also, I would like to know if there is enough water to provide all these areas within the metro as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Letty. Next question.
Hi, uMngeni-uThukela from the Witness newspaper. I want to touch on the financials when uMngeni says they started the year on a financial low due to the floods and the maintenance costs that have increased also due to the floods. I just want to know where we are at this point in terms of what has been maintained up to a standard where there won't be losses in the future. I know during 2022, the reasons why uMngeni would tell us how far they are with fixing infrastructure was because we just had floods and we are moving closer to the festive season. Again, we are there, we are moving closer to the festive season, and people want to know if they will have enough water and if all the aqueducts that needed fixing have been fixed. Maybe if you can just give me an update on that.
Thank you, uMngeni-uThukela. Is there another question? None. I think we'll respond to these and possibly take a second round if there are any as follow-ups. So I will hand over to the respondents.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, colleagues, for the questions. If maybe I can start from the last one, in terms of the infrastructure repairs from the floods. I think I can firmly confirm that we have repaired all infrastructure as a result of the floods, and over and above that, as part of our standing agreements with our customers, we normally work in advance to make sure that during the festive season, both December and January, there are no planned shuts. It doesn't matter what maintenance you want to do. That is front loaded. We don't do that. We don't shut during December, January. So there will not be any planned interruptions during that period. So whatever that comes could be any, it will be an unplanned interruption. And then coming to the water shedding issues, the amount of water that we have is, firstly, maybe let me start with in KZN, we have in excess of 52% non-revenue water, which includes real water losses. So which therefore means that all the water that we produce, if we were to deal with the water losses component, we would ideally have sufficient water for all residents. And it is the case for all our customers. This is why we embark on assisting the municipalities with water conservation and demand management. So we have sufficient water. I know that the city is working hard to deal with the reticulation challenges. But in terms of the source, that is definitely not the issue currently. There are various projects that the city is working on. We may not talk about them here, but there are projects that the city is working on. So coming to the recent failures in the reticulation, the question was whether this is as a result of limiting supply. The answer, I think, is no. Supply has never been restricted. Even during the floods, we utilized pumping systems, which costed us because we are abstracting water from about 200 meters below, and we are pumping. So pumping costs were very huge. I'm sure in our OPEX cost, Ushamasa would have shown that. So we did not limit the supply. And our understanding of the failures, I would want to just state that the failure that lasted about 9 days, uMngeni-uThukela provided support to the city, and we were able to resolve the issues. We were called in about 5 days into the problem, and we came in, we worked together with the city, and the problem was successfully resolved. It was in the north. So also in the south, there is a big project which the city is embarking on to deal with water supply shortages in the south. I think it was on the papers. There is a tender that went out which closes in November. So the city is working on that. On wastewater infrastructure, indication of what would be involved. Yes. Firstly, the wastewater effluent eventually goes to the sea. So the visible problem is that people would not go to the beaches. But the city has started some work such that the beaches are open. So what we need to do now is to rehabilitate upstream, because there's a lot that must also happen upstream before it even gets to the sea, where the rivers must be protected and sewage spillages must be dealt with. So our work is to get the wastewater to comply fully from upstream all the way to the sea. So we'll get that going through a combination of short to medium term types of projects. We've got some budgets allocated to do that. We will share CAPEX with the city. Some of the CAPEX type of projects will be done by the city, and some will be done by ourselves. So we will be dealing with those. So with reference specifically to the Northern Works, we've conducted our condition assessments. We know exactly what needs to be done there. So we are busy doing the preliminary processes to deal with such issues that are visible to the public. But our main concern is with the effluent quality. So we'll be looking to improving that. So in December, people will be swimming in the beaches with no issues. I think the one on the financial impact, I will get to Undonga to take. Thank you.
Thank you. I think just to touch on the wastewater, the question on the financial impact on residents of eThekwini. Obviously, as a water board, we have no direct contact to the residents in terms of billing. But the agreement that we've entered with eThekwini is a cost plus agreement. I think it's cost plus 4%. And the 4% is just the admin and the project management, since we will be actually offering our engineers to then actually assist on the projects. And all the costs are actually monitored by eThekwini. So we shouldn't see a big spike on residents because the cost plus the cost is the expenditures that they would have incurred anyway in terms of trying to ensure that they process or they do the work in those wastewater plants. Thank you.
Okay, I note the two hands in front. I note the follow-up by Ketu as well as Boniswa, your hand. Sihle, is your hand up? Okay, I note those. Can I just go online and quickly take some questions from News 24? The first one is for yourself, Doc, and I suppose to a certain extent the chairperson as it touches on the acting position of the chief executive. What is the effect of acting positions on the newly merged entity? Why is it so long to fill these vacancies or other positions? And what is the water utility stance and comment on the Mhlathuze Water Criminal Court case? What are your comments on the intimidation, the report, and the state of corruption? uMngeni-uThukela Water will be managing the eThekwini wastewater treatment works. What is the update with that? When will you begin? How do you feel? I think this one has been adequately covered by the foregoing speakers. And then for the CFO, please can we get further explanation on the assets impairment of 292 million? Why were these assets written off? Were they sold, repaired? What type of assets are these? And what about irregular expenditure contracts? Who are these companies? Why not end these contracts so that you stop incurring billions in uMngeni-uThukela sitting at the moment? So with these questions from the online audience, can I then get back to the main table? I saw the three hands. Can we take the questions in the order that I've noted them? Ketu, you can start. Okay, the mic is with you, Bonnie, so it's fine.
To ask, it's Boniswa from Isoles, to the board, when is the CEO going to be appointed? Because the last time the minister said very soon. Also, I want to check how much do municipalities owe uMngeni-uThukela, and who are your troublesome customers? Maybe if you can name the top 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Boniswa. Sihle?
Okay, thank you very much, Sihle Mabuso, freelance journalist. This is about the SIU investigation. If you look at the 2 contracts that are being investigated, they were issued somewhere around, I think some years ago. We do understand that some of the employees who were behind this have left. Now, how many employees are still under the employment of the entity as of today were involved in this contract? And the two, I understand that News 24 has briefly touched on this, but my question is very simple. Have you considered cancelling these contracts? Because if you look at your irregular expenditure, I think 70% of it comes from those 2 contracts. Have you considered cancelling them?
Okay, my question is just for Umnumzan Mazibuwa. He touched on initiatives that will be started in Copesville. I just want you to expand a little bit on that, maybe just touching on Umsondozi as a whole when it comes to initiatives and projects that are dealing with water leaks and wastages.
Thank you. Can we have responses to the questions? Thank you.
Thanks. I think in the main, if you look at the collective of the questions, they relate to what the board, I think, can give input to. The online questions really they talks to the acting, the appointments, and I think there's intimidation, corruption, and it also reflects to irregular expenditure, which I think I can highlight something. And then there's a question from Usihle Mavuso, which talks to those investigations and the contracts which are driving the irregular, I think, the material irregular expenditure. So I will deal with those. The acting positions in the board are everyone's concerns. The Human Resource Committee met yesterday. They are formulating appropriate profile for the position of the CEO. We are having a board meeting on the 29th of November, wherein that report will be presented to the board for consideration, recommendations, and approval. And immediately thereafter, a process of recruitment will start. So we are with speed. What they say in Latin is festina lente, you hasten but slowly. We are in that kind of an environment where we need to hasten, but at the same time, we need to ensure that we take the right steps, because we would be filling the first employee of the organization's position, which would ordinarily have to then run through the other processes of filling other positions. The question of intimidation, corruption, I think I can lump all of that with what is termed material irregularities. What has transpired is that the Audit General, in the ordinary course of conducting their statutory audit, escalated those matters to the presidency, and the presidency issued necessary proclamations. The old one, I think, which Mr. Mavuso refers to, I would say it's the 2019, which is is referred to as R4 of 2019. On the 7th of November, I received a final report together with a letter from the presidency, which sets out, I think, the certain clarifications which may not be picked up in the report. We have put together a team of 3 board members. I'm the 4th one. I'm the convener of that. We call it a study group for purposes of ensuring that we go through the report. We then report back to the board with appropriate recommendations and steps that need to be taken to give effect to the report. In the process of the SIU conducting that investigations, there were referrals that were being communicated to uMngeni-uThukela then, and all of those processes I think they're being consolidated. As of tomorrow, for instance, I can share with you that we are having a follow-up meeting with the SIU in order to take stock on some of the referrals that they had already communicated to the board. So nothing is actually going to fall through the cracks, because there are no cracks as yet. The irregularities, I think, relating to the contractors, which again you are attributing to, they actually relate to what has been initiated as M1 2023. So those are material irregularities that the Auditor General has referred again to the SIU, and hence the SIU as of current, they are investigating those two contracts. So the two contracts, I think you're relating to, are under the SIU investigation. In the meeting again with the SIU last week, we touched on what would be a prudent approach in the investigation, because you correct, the longer the investigation really runs, these irregularities will sit in our AG's report, and they don't read well. Neither can the board attempt to do anything in relation to those allegations, because they are already in the hands of the SIU. Hence, we are having a follow-up again with because they were I think the Hawks who are investigating those two contracts. I think they would also be in attendance in tomorrow's follow-up meeting. We cannot, I think, sitting here, be in a position to share what is the nature of the investigation and probably what are the entities. But your question really was touching on the nerve of the problem, because the contract was, I think there are irregularities that are being investigated, and the contract is still ongoing. So somebody's benefiting from an irregular contract. In the same vein, we are bound by such a contract until or unless it's been set aside. So one really investigation, I think we posed to the SIU was a possibility of engaging on their processes for taking some of these issues through their presentations and then present them to the tribunal, because they are the only one who has the capacity to then approach the tribunal in order to set aside such contracts. Because immediately thereafter, when it is set aside, we are then in a different light in dealing with any potential recoveries. The contracts can only be cancelled once a determination has been made. As of current, we all say it's an allegation. The longer it takes, I think the worse it comes to the board's reports. Umhlatuze, corruption and intimidation. Again, in Umhlatuze, there was an investigation which was conducted. It was, I think, a forensic investigation, which has led to certain individuals being charged with corruption, and we all know the matter is in court. I don't know whether it's this coming week, but it was in court, and then it was adjourned in order for necessary, I think, exchanges of documents, and probably you would know, because one of the complications I think that arose out of the matter was the two high-profile criminal cases that are really occupying, I think, our space. They are sharing the same legal team. So the Umhlatuze one, when they made their appearance, I think there was an issue of what dates could then be set aside for commencing with the trial. Hence, the issue of the teams that are representing the other trial are also involved in there. So again, that delay would ordinarily be a delay that is outside our control and influence. But in the main, the investigation that had led to that initiation of the criminal proceedings in Umhlatuze were initiated by the Estwal Umhlatuze board, and we are currently sitting with resolving the payments for a service provider who was conducting that investigation. And by law and by common sense and logic, that was initiated in order to deal with allegations of corruption, which we as a board, again, we would similarly have engaged in ensuring that such allegations are investigated in order to take whatever necessary steps and all. Whether an employee who is implicated in a report is still in the employment of uMngeni-uThukela Water Board, I think it just requires of us, for instance, through the R4 of 2019 report to go through that exercise. And I think I'm aware that the uMngeni-uThukela relevant official was already in possession of who was alleged to conducted what irregularity in relation to the employee contractual obligation. So one can simply say there is a process. We would be reporting to the board as soon as we have completed our reading of the report and the necessary recommendation will be made. And I think it can just be taken as a conclusion that if there is anybody's name who from the report is recommended for discipline and is in the employment of uMngeni-uThukela, that I refer to as accountability. That person will get an opportunity to account for his or her behavior. If he or she had failed to take a particular step again, that would be an accountability. I think I've covered the areas which would have fallen on my side.
Thank you, Chair. I think I would like to maybe respond on the question of asset impairments, and then I will also maybe touch on the issue of troublesome customers. On the issue of asset impairments, you know, as an organization, as much as we are driven by, you know, future financial sustainability, we also have a social element that we need to look into, whereby we then deliver certain waterworks and projects in areas where the cost of actually building that waterworks will be more than the future cash flows or recoveries or revenues that we'll be able to generate. Now, in accounting terms, if you have that particular problem, you then need to impair the difference, because it then means that you will never recover the cost, because you're either building a waterworks in the rural area where, you know, houses are very scattered. So the communities are not as much as you would want to then say in a normal business model, this is how many people I need to be profitable. So in that arena, we then have to then sit down and actually impair those. But the other element that has actually an effect on our impairment is then the municipalities that are not paying us on time. Because whilst we then have to account for the future revenues or future cash flows, we then have to make sure that we look at what's the potential of the cash flow that we're going to receive. So whilst municipalities are not paying us on time, we then have to go back and reassess that plan to say, we are not receiving cash flows because they are not paying us. Then the standard of accounting then requires us to then impair based on the cash flows that we receive. So when it comes to municipalities not paying us, we actually are hit as in a double whammy, where firstly, we have to account for credit losses as a separate line item, but then we also have to impair the asset. So it's quite a serious and a serious risk that we are actually looking into. I think on the issue of troublesome customers, I think because we are here presenting the highlights of the annual report, and the annual report only becomes public when the minister has actually then presented. When you get the annual report, we do actually list our age analysis in terms of who owes us, and at that time, probably then we'll have to look into it. But I think in the interest of the annual report not actually being publicized, I would not want to delve into naming and shaming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, CFO, COO, and the CE. Colleagues, I think now I'll use my own prerogative. Okay. Oh, is there one more? Oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Program Director. I think this one is on water leaks. In principle, what we do when we combine with the municipalities, we do a systems mapping, which identifies the critical spots in terms of where we need to monitor. So when that is done, you know where you must put your meters. So when you have your meters, it means you can do your monitoring and evaluation of the system, which will assist you to be able to collect revenue. Number two, you'll be able to know which of the non-revenue water is unaccounted for versus which is real losses. And therefore you have a clear picture of what to do. So generally our assistance is technically on that, and we develop business plans together to either look for funding, or when funding is available, then the municipality embarks on conducting the necessary infrastructure repairs and bringing in the necessary metering systems in place. So specifically on Copsville, it would be similar to Bopomeni, where we will do a door-to-door campaign, which will assist in also providing awareness in terms of water losses, and also training and actual repairs to reduce the water losses in the system. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can I request that so that we keep up with time, any other questions that we may still have, let's treat them as one-on-ones. But in the main, I think our panel has covered all those questions that needed responding to. But I'm also aware that our colleagues, particularly from television, might want to request one-on-one interviews. So this will happen outside of where we are. Let me then thank the panel for the responses that they've given us, and also the media colleagues themselves for the questions, and particularly everyone else who's joined us today. Thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience.